Okay, in this video, we're going to talk about nested classes. Nested classes, as in you have two classes, the instance of one class is in another class. So we are still continuing with our song type example. So if you look here, song.h, the same song type class that you've seen before. Nothing is different. It has these private data members, it has constructors, it has all the accessor and mutator functions. And the implementation is in song.cpp. I have another class called playlist in which we have an album name and a song which is from the other class, right? A song is an instance of the other class. The purpose of this video is to demonstrate what constructor gets called, what do you need to do in the default constructor for this class, what do you need to initialize, and what gets initialized automatically, who gets called, things like that. And so if you look in this class, I have an album name and I have a song. So any instance of this class will have a song and an album name. Now, of course, this could be an array of songs, which is really what it would be in a playlist, right? But it doesn't matter whether it's a single song or an array of songs. Then you have your constructor, default constructor for this class, the constructor with parameters that takes one album name and a song. And you have a destructor, which pretty much does not do anything right now, and something that prints the playlist. So very simple functions. Then if you go take a look at playlist.cpp, the implementation for this, the default constructor, notice all we do in the default constructor is to initialize that char array that we had. You don't really have to do anything with the song object because remember, we already have a constructor for this. Okay, and this default constructor will get called when an instance of this object, the playlist, is created. And you will see that I'm going to show you using GDB real quick how that happens. So your default constructor for this class, all you have to do is worry about the char array. Now, for the one with parameters that receives a new char array and a new song, you pretty much copy the new char array, and then you are going to simply say a song equals new song. Okay, but what is an a song already? The new song is the new song coming in, and that comes from whoever is calling this function, right? Creating an instance of this object. Okay, we will step through code and see what exactly happens here and what happens before that. And here is my destructor that does nothing. And here is my print playlist that prints the album name. And then, of course, since it's a single song, we call our song its own print song function, which is written here, that will print itself. And it prints all its information. So I don't have to go out and print that. I can simply call that function using a song, which is part of my object. Remember, the object, the instance calls the method, the instance invokes the method. So that this instance for this playlist has an album name that'll get printed, and it has a song and will print its information. Now let's take a look at main. Very simple. I don't have anything complicated. I create a single song using my constructor called mySong, constructor with parameters. I create a playlist. This is to show how to call it from the default constructor. So no parameters, that calls the default constructor for the playlist object. This is list2 that is getting called. The constructor gets called with the parameters, and then we print the two things. So if I run this, it will print the two playlists and see what it does. The first one is being called with the default constructor. Of course, album name is unknown. And notice my song has no title, no artist, which is coming from the default constructor for the single song. I did not call it because all I did was create a data member, and in the constructor, I simply string copy the album name. I'm not doing anything with that a song, which is the data member for list one. But it automatically calls the default constructor for the song and copies all of this information. And so if I go take a look at list two, I send it two parameters, the album name and the mySong. The mySong is the one that gets populated with all this information. And if you look at playlist.cpp, this constructor gets called with the parameters, string copy the new name to album name. The new song gets copied over to a song. Okay, now I'm going to move over to the shell here on the right side of Replit, And I already compiled this with the GDB options. So if you see the command that I used to compile gives me all these warnings, but that's okay. Some of them we can ignore, and the rest of them are optimization warnings, which we don't care about. So G++ minus wall minus G minus O and 0 to ignore. I don't want it to optimize anything, so I can see all my symbols as I step through code. All the CPP files minus O playlist. So my executable is in playlist. And then we will clear the screen, use GDB to run it, /playlist. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to have main here. We're going to step through the code starting from line 5. So we are going to put a breakpoint, B space 5 will put a breakpoint in main.cpp. If I'm not putting the breakpoint in any other file, I don't have to specify the file name, right? So it says, okay, breakpoint, line 5, main.cpp, R to run your code, and here I am on line 5. Now, if you want to see what is happening in that function, you're going to use S to step into that constructor. And notice here we are in our constructor for song type with parameters. And it tells you all the parameters that it's taking. So new title is Yellow Submarine, new artist is Beatles. All of those things are the ones that have come through. That's what we have passed here on line 5, right? So now you do next, it's going to string copy all the information. This is your constructor with parameters in the song.cpp executing. Okay, gets copied, constructor is done. We are going to line 6. We are creating list 1. Again, S to step into the constructor. And here we are in the constructor. I'm going to use S again and see where it's going to go. Here it is in my default constructor for the song. Okay, did we call it? Look at playlist.cpp. Your line 8 simply does string copy. So before it even gets to this line, it calls the default constructor for your song. So it can initialize that A song, which is your data member that is sitting here for your list 1 object. It gets initialized with no title, no artist, 00 for duration and beats per second. Okay, then it goes back, and now we are string copying the album name, which is line 8 in playlist.cpp, and that's how your list 1 gets initialized. So we are back in main, and if you say print list 1, notice p space list 1, here is all the information. Album name is unknown, a song has no title, no artist, 00 for duration and beats per second. So let's go S to step into the next constructor for playlist list 2. So we're on line 7. Now we have jumped into the constructor with parameters. I'm going to do S again. And notice again, it goes into the default constructor for a song, sets everything to no title, no artist, 00, comes back to my playlist construct with parameters, string copies the new name to album name. So now my album name should have Good Times, copies the new song with all the information that I've sent it from my song. Notice list 2 sends my song from here that I created on line 5. That goes here to my constructor with parameters into new song, which is the same as my song from there. I copy that over to a song. And now if I print list 2, it should print it. Well, let's go one more. And then you print list 2. It prints all the information that I sent to create it. So, and then you can do next, and it's going to print everything. And you can quit, say yes, I queue to quit, say yes, I want to quit anyway. And so what this shows you is when you have a nested class like this, where playlist has an instance from another class, in your constructor, what exactly do you do? All you have to do is worry about that other parameter while your object, your instance, is getting initialized from the default constructor from its own class. And this can be good and bad. So you will have to keep this in mind when you move on to the next phase with pointers. So you know this A song that is sitting in here has already been initialized with the constructor. with the default constructor from the song class. And now you're copying over this new song to a song and saying, well, I don't want what was there in the default constructor. I want you to override it with the information that I'm sending you here. Okay, so that's kind of how nested classes work and how the constructors get called.